Hello everybody, this is Maniac4Bricks. This is a vertical video because I'm only able to use this on mobile, so sorry. But anyways, I saw Black Widow last night and I have a full review that's coming up. Not a lot of visuals to it unfortunately because I just recorded it from my car, but it's like half an hour long, so give it a little bit of time before I get to talk about it. But in the meanwhile, I'm going to do this video, which will have some spoilers for the film. The review, it's like 23 minutes in that it actually goes into the spoiler territory. So if you just want to enjoy the film without any of that context, basically, I enjoyed the film. It's not my favorite Marvel film. It's kind of above average, but it's not like top tier or anything like that. And it does at least, stand out from other films. It's very unique in how everything is presented. Not the run-of-the-mill superhero film. Feels more like a spy film, honestly, in some cases. And, it's also very dark. So, even though it has a PG-13 rating, I feel like that the subject matter, some of the theming, and, of course, a couple expletives that are thrown in for literally an entire scene, push it a bit over the, PG-13 rating. And I know that's very sensitive material to some people, so take that in precaution. Like 15 minutes into the film, it starts up with that kind of mindset. So be forewarned about that. But if you already enjoy Black Widow as a character in the other films, this one does her very well. I much appreciate her more because of this film. And even though she's gone from the MCU as a character, this was a good, this is a good summary. This is something that's supposed to take place before a lot of that, of course, but is still, a good standalone film for her. I like all of the characters in it as well. Now, with that being said, I will get into the spoilers because I'm going to be talking about the LEGO sets that were released in 2020. And I do say sets because technically, one, kind of limited, but still available in some places, especially Target. And the other one, it was supposed to be a San Diego Comic-Con or New York Comic-Con kind of exclusive, but they did away with some of them. They made them a limited release in some stores for various times throughout 2020, and one of them was themed on Black Widow. So, apologies, so I'm going to keep getting notifications through here. I'm going to try to make this really quick, so let's go right into it. So first thing I'd like to start out with is Black Widow's helicopter chase. That's the one you're mainly going to find as far as the merchandise goes, if you do find it in stores. And it's still a good summary for, major events or major vehicles. Like something, if LEGO had to take a scene or so from the movie and adapt it into a standalone LEGO set. Yeah, they didn't do a whole line of these for this film. That's totally fine. It's a spin-off, but still works. I will say, though, there are some things that are inaccurate compared to the film. Because, well, they probably had some footnotes from the development. Sometimes things change over time as the movie, gets developed. So I don't know how much of this they were relying on source material at the time, or if they got any updates about it, or if they just winged it, no pun intended, because it's a helicopter, and worked with it as best as they could, and just make it a sellable building toy that you can actually play with. So, for this helicopter set, it is a $30 set. I mostly find it at Target. I think it's 271 pieces, 3 minifigures. As far as the helicopter itself, yes, it does appear in the film. There is a specific scene early on in the film where this helicopter is used, but contrary to the box art actually illustrates that Taskmaster is the one that's using the helicopter. Doesn't happen in the film. Instead, Black Widow and her sister Yelena, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, are the ones that use the helicopter. They're breaking into a prison in order to find their surrogate father, Alexei. And he does appear in one of the other sets. I'll talk about that in a bit. So it's a reverse of who's actually using what material in this set, which is easy to do with just the figures themselves. You just put one in the pilot seat compared to the other. The second thing I do want to touch upon, there's only one seat for the pilot in this set, and given the size of it, that makes sense. They don't have enough room that you can fit two, co-pilots next to each other as they do in the film, but, oh well, it is what it is. Number 3, I have looked at the reviews of the set to see more of the interior shots and everything like that, and there's not a lot of interior to the set itself, so you could store minifigures and other cargo back there, which is perfectly fine. And that does happen in the film, you know? There's not a lot of interior shots in the film itself, maybe a little bit for conversation, but there's not a lot of relevance to the inside of the helicopter, you know, don't have to worry about that being accurate. That being said, this set mentions that you could use a small quad bike that you see on the far left to store inside of the helicopter. It's cool for a play feature, but the quad bike, as far as I know, doesn't exist in the film, or may have been in the background of some scenes. It's not a major plot point or a major vehicle that's being used at any time. Now, onto the helicopter more. The color scheme. It's pretty important, because you try to look for this thing in the film, like you already know this merchandise is out there, and you watch the film, you're like, where's the helicopter? It's not the same color. It's actually a much brighter color, which I find kind of funny because, well, normally LEGO leans away from military-based stuff unless it's based on a work of fiction, yada yada. And even in something like this, I feel like they would have gone a lighter color. Like they did Kylo Ren Shuttle in the episode 7 of Star Wars was a lighter color than it appeared in the film because of their footnotes or whatever. And then they revised it later to make it darker. This one actually appears in the film in white with some streaks of blue and red, so it's a much brighter looking thing. I don't know if that's because of the marketing of it, I don't know if it's because of the manufacturing of parts, or if they just wanted to make it feel like, oh, this is a Black Widow based LEGO set. What are Black Widow's main colors? Blue, with some like that transparent blue in some items, and black, you know, so might as well work with that. I don't know if it's also because it's a military-grade helicopter, because in the film, they don't use artillery from the helicopter itself. This is another point about it. On the set, they show a couple of flick-fire missiles you can use on either side of it, stud shooters, whatever you want to call them, and even some mounted weapons, simulated mounted weapons. That doesn't happen in the film. As far as I remember, they only used one piece of artillery, but that was something carried onto the helicopter. Like, it didn't have to attach to the helicopter itself. So that's something that's different. In that same scene where that like rocket launcher thing is being used by Yelena, they had an opening door, and there is no opening hatches on the sides of the helicopter. That's another point against it as far as accuracy goes. I get that LEGO doesn't want to make it a super expensive set, and that's probably a cost-cutting measure, was like, okay, well, we're not going to have this door open. I feel like it could have got away with a couple pieces here and there, or even made like a smaller version of it that still could accompany a figure or so. They've made this style of helicopter before, and usually much larger, $50 or so, and even then it didn't have an opening hatch door. I know that they've had even larger ones than that many years before that were like almost $70 or $80 and did have a hatch opening door with a very complex build. So take that as you will as far as the, you know, if they could have actually swung that way with that feature. I think it would have helped. I think it could have made it a little more basic, but still more accurate. And moving on to some other things in the set, minifigures are very accurate. None of them I have a problem with. Taskmaster, a little bit so, because we don't have printing on the legs. It does feel better when it's suited properly from head to toe with the minifigure. And I'll see if I can get a closer image right here. There we go. So yeah, with Taskmaster, it's head to toe covered in armor, and you only really have it on the torso according to this set and the other one. The hood piece, I don't remember it as much in the film. I remembered it more just like a helmet sort of thing, so I'm not sure really what to play on that one, although Taskmaster in other variants has had a hood, so give that whatever you want to. But otherwise, the printing that is there is still very accurate. Now, Yelena looks pretty good all the way around. I think the hair is passable, like the hairstyle itself is passable. The face looks okay. The one thing I would have liked a little bit better from this figure is the arm printing. I would have liked if there was any arm printing on it, because there is none, just to line up with the rest of the armor that she is wearing at that time, and pretty much wears through most of the film. So making this variant of her makes sense, even if it's the only figure of her released for this film. As for Black Widow, she is not in this outfit in the scene with the helicopter. She does wear this later in the film for like the last half hour, almost 45 minutes of the film, honestly, because she has a costume change in between. So it makes sense of how it looks for Black Widow in general. And even reminisces on the older versions of Black Widow outfits from like the first Avengers film and so on. But as far as one that encompasses what she wears throughout most of the film, not as much about this one. Only somewhat there. But still a good one to have. And also would appreciate it if they had a different hairpiece for her. This one still works fine, and it's one that's used with multiple Black Widow figures of a similar hairstyle. But she did have braids that looked like it came from both sides of her shoulders, so I would have liked if that was available here. They have made that piece before for other figures, and in a couple different styles as well. So, I'll, nitpick about that as I may. Let's see if I can scroll in a little bit further on any of these images. Yep, so here's on the box art where it shows the Taskmaster is using the helicopter. So that's where I said it was inaccurate. The motorcycle. So about the motorcycle, it is included and it is in the film, but it's not used in the helicopter scene. It's technically used before the helicopter scene when Natasha meets up with Yelena in Budapest. They say that specifically because of how they pronounce it in the film. And it's in a chase scene with Taskmaster. Yes, that part is true, but it's not... actually, yeah, so there was like a couple of different vehicles used in that chase scene. If I remember correctly, Taskmaster is using a tank for majority of it. Natasha and Yelena start on a bike, then they go to a car, and they either go on a bike again or on foot. I'm not entirely sure, but yes, the bike being there is perfectly fine. It's a fine inclusion, and accurate to the film. So here's about the little quad. Basically just adds a play feature into the set that you could roll this thing up into the helicopter, which is still cool for a toy. I'm not worried about it in that way. Now, I'm going to scroll over to the other set, Taskmaster's Ambush. This is the one that I said was originally going to be in a Comic-Con exclusive, and then it was made a limited release in retail stores for some time, along with some other sets. And this one does offer a bit more. This one does give you a couple more things that are to the film's accuracy, and even a character or two that, would, if you're a fan of the film, these would be nice to have. So, starting things out, I already mentioned that Taskmaster uses a tank in one of the chase scenes early on in the film. This is accurate here. Is it exactly the same style as the one in the film? Not exactly, but I'm fine with it as a play model. It works fine here for getting the gist of it down. I do like that there are some ways to add accessories onto this one, even though, again, you don't see a lot of close-ups of the tank itself in the film to really get that breadth of it, but I think the model does enough as it needs to for suggesting this model, related to the film. Moving on from there, so the Taskmaster in this set doesn't have a hood. That's literally the only difference between this one and the other one. And again, there's a better look at the face and torso printing, which again, I would say is very accurate. Black Widow, this is the more common, or the more iconic, I would say, suit that she wears throughout the film, for more than half of it, I would say, like, more adapted for her. And it looks fine. Again, I would like if there was some arm printing on the torsos, but it looks good enough as it is. Torso, leg printing, fits very well. And then we have the Red Guardian, or Alexei. I think they could have done a little bit more with this figure, to be honest, but it still looks good for what he is. So with this figure, the hair looks fine, the face looks fine. They are the face itself, I believe, is brand new. The torso is a brand new print, and it looks accurate. I think they could have done more, again, with the leg printing, especially compared to the other figures where, mostly Black Widow, but I think, again, with Taskmaster, you could have had some leg printing to go with her as well to make it more accurate. Both Taskmaster and Red Guardian include shields in this set. They're not in the same style as the common Captain America shield nowadays. They have like an additional tile piece that's put onto them as the actual print. I feel like that was a little bit skimping out, but honestly, I'm still happy that they have an accessory for both of them. And having a Red Guardian accessory, you know, he doesn't use his shield in the film. He actually uses Taskmasters while fighting, but it still works just to have the figure like that. And it's like, okay, we already have this figure that's already been established beforehand and has had a shield before. So, you know, this looks fine. I would have liked if they included a helmet piece. That's the one thing I would have really liked to see more from this minifigure in this set, would have been a helmet piece, the same color, or the same style of piece, but different color as Captain America's. So I'm going to bring that up real quick before I wrap things up in this video. I just need to find the right Captain America set, because there's several of them where he doesn't use the helmet piece. There's later versions where he does. So this one actually came out earlier this year, if I remember correctly. Or last year? But recent enough that they would have been developing these sets basically at the same time, is what I'm trying to say. So this style of helmet would have worked for Red Guardian as well. I think that would have looked great. Just using a different color, maybe a different print on it. Even if it didn't have a print at all, it still would have wrapped up a little bit nicer. Because, to be fair, a lot of the time in the film when he is wearing the outfit, he has the helmet with him. There are several times where he doesn't, and you just have him with his hair up, which is fine, but I think it would have looked a little bit better. I also would have liked if there was an extra beard piece for him, because he has, it goes out quite a bit to his torso, a little bit more burly beard than just on the face itself. And if I did get this at some point, I would try to customize that myself. I think that'd be really cool to try adding in some of those features, or even with the other set from Black Widow. I did enjoy this film, and I would like to try to adapt some of this stuff in LEGO to some degree. I have seen some other people that made one of the other characters from the film that wasn't released in the LEGO sets, so that was cool. I don't think they made a set for Dreykov or had him previously in another LEGO Marvel superhero set, but that's fine. I think he's still a very good villain. I did enjoy seeing him. Like, he was more imposing and cunning than most other Marvel villains that we've seen in the past, especially from a side story, you know, one-off kind of film, you know, based on a certain character, you know, that kind of thing. So, yeah, as far as we know now, these are the only two sets that are released based on the Black Widow movie. I doubt that they're going to do much more with this unless they do some kind of legacy thing later on, like they did with some of the other Marvel Cinematic Universe films. But I'm okay with this. I don't think it needs a whole lot of sets to it. And I do like that I finally got to look at this after seeing the film. I mean, I know these sets have been out for a while, almost a year, but when it comes to a lot of licensed properties, I usually don't go into something until I know the context of it. So, you know, I've picked up LEGO sets right after seeing a film. Like Guardians of the Galaxy 2, immediately after picked up the Milano set that they had at the time. You know, that's fair, because it's like, okay, I really enjoyed this film, and I understand the concepts and what the set is about and the variants of those figures. So, you know, I'm going to enjoy not only building the set, but also, you know, moving it around or setting it up with other sets, you know, very well. So, there we go on that. Let me know in the comments below if you have anything you'd like to add about both of these sets. And we'll see you next time with more LEGO videos. I know there's also other videos on the channel I've been trying to work on for a while. Some of them that are half completed, and I'll get them done when I get them done. So, subscribe, bell, all that jive. And, take care.